Hello, welcome to the Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association. My name is Chris Schmidt, and it is my honor to serve as the CEO of the Bar Association and Foundation. We're gathered this afternoon for something truly special, and it's a privilege to welcome our honored guest, ABA President Bill Bay. We believe that the ABA last visited Cleveland in about 2002 at the invitation of Jose Feliciano, and we are so thankful that they accepted our offer to return to Cleveland during these important times. The American Bar Association was founded in 1878, making it 5 years younger than the Cleveland Bar Association, but that's not a big deal. Since those 75 lawyers came together in upstate New York with the goal of forming a national practice standard for our profession, the ABA has grown to represent more than 400,000 members globally and stands as the largest voluntary legal association in the world. Over the past 148 years, along with their industry-leading efforts around ethics, policy, and justice for all, the ABA has not shied away from the controversies of the day when history needs someone to speak up on behalf of law. Just a few examples. In 1937, the ABA surveyed 30,000 members about President Franklin Roosevelt's court packing plan, finding that more than 86% opposed that effort. Advocacy around this survey effectively ended that proposal and preserved the court as 9 members. In 1973, in response to the Watergate break-ins, the ABA declared that no man is above the law and called for the appointment of an independent prosecutor to investigate the White House, which ultimately led to the resignation of the president. In 2010, the ABA became one of the first national organizations to call for every state to eliminate legal barriers to same-sex marriage. And nowhere is the ABA's willingness to lean in and do the hard work more evident than their efforts in the past 6 months. Under Bill's unfaltering leadership, the ABA has been steadfast in their support for the independent judiciary, for the right of lawyers and firms to represent clients of their choosing, for those same firms to have the right to hire attorneys without fear of political repercussions, and the fundamental right of everyone within our borders to their day in court. The CMBA was one of the first metro bars in the country to speak up on these issues. And all of these matters of critical importance to all Americans, and every step of the way, we have been working along with the ABA to maximize the impact of those efforts. Some members have asked us why we're focused so much on this issue and spending so much of our time on something that's, quote, not yet a Cleveland problem. To that, I'll say 2 things. First, the national problem is a Cleveland problem, as many of our member firms have offices and team members outside of Northeast Ohio. But even if your firm doesn't practice beyond the city limits, what's happening in New York and DC and Chicago directly impacts the future of our profession and the rights of the members of our community. Secondly, as we've seen in the past 6 months, this problem is one Truth Social post away from being directly at our doorstep. That might look like an EO targeting a local firm, like an order removing funding from our friends at Legal Aid, or like a new law attempting to strip this bar association of our tax-exempt status. Whatever it is, we know it's coming. Be that from DC or from Columbus or both. We simply cannot sit and wait with this much on the line. Our focus in these efforts has never been right versus left, but instead has been on right versus wrong. I can assure everyone in this room that we will continue to lead hard conversations and will continue to do hard things on behalf of our members and our community, no matter who happens to be in the White House. Our guest today is Bill Bay, the 24-25 president of the ABA. Bill has a long and distinguished career as a partner at Thompson Coburn LLP in St. Louis, focused on complex business litigation. As a volunteer, he has previously served as the chair of the ABA's House of Delegates, the chair of the ABA's litigation section, which I've been told is the largest section of the ABA, and they're very proud of that, and the ABA Board of Governors. See, I knew people would be excited about that shout out. Bill has also been selected as the chair on multiple statewide commissions examining critical issues in the practice of law. He currently serves as a co-chair on the Supreme Court of Missouri's Commission on Racial and Ethnic Fairness. He's also past president of our peer Metro Bar in St. Louis. Bill is a graduate of the University of Missouri and of the University of Michigan School of Law. We won't hold that against him. When Bill isn't busy helping preserve democracy, he's also the proud father of 3 great kids and grandpa to 8 grandchildren. Following introductory remarks by Bill, we'll move into a conversation hosted by the CMBA's immediate past president, Matt Besser, followed by an open session where attendees will have the opportunities to ask questions in addition to those that we've already received through the registration form. We'd ask that your questions be focused and respectful to reflect the importance of this topic. Following the conclusion of this event, we invite everybody to stay for a cocktail reception just outside on the Lido deck that will run until 6:30 p.m. Today's event is not the end of these conversations, however. Accordingly, we invite you all to join us for an open forum right here at 4 p.m. on August 21st. More information on that can be found on our website or on your handout. Many of you in this room today are our biggest supporters, and we're so thankful for your commitment to the bar. Our aim for this event is that everyone will be inspired to take action, maybe not on this topic specifically, but in a way that is meaningful for you. For a few simple ways to do that, please see your handout. Through the QR codes, you can join if you're not already a member. And I took attendance, and not all of you are members. We'd love for you to join. You can sign up to volunteer for one of our best-in-class programs, or you can make a one-time donation of $35 to our foundation to support our education efforts that seek to develop and train the next generation of lawyers right here in Cleveland. I'll leave you with this thought. The ABA medal features an image of Chief Justice John Marshall and a quote from John Adams that reads, "To the end that we may be a government of laws and not of men." In that spirit, let us all remember during these seemingly fraught times that our primary obligation is to the law itself and to the creation of a system that allows individuals to experience true justice, no matter who they are, who they know, or the number in their bank account. With no further ado, please join me in welcoming ABA President Bill Bay.
I may speak longer today, but I'm not sure I'm going to speak better than what Chris just had to say. That really summarized where we're at. It's I took the notes about not right versus left, but right versus wrong. That's great. It's an honor to be here today. Thanks to Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association. I was trying to figure out whether it was going to be more like a ball game or like, where I go to church. And it's kind of in between. The ball game, everybody down front, church, you all in the back. You're kind of in the middle here. But thanks to the Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association, we had a great time last night and today been busy. Also, President Nick DeCello, immediate past President Matt Besser is going to be up here with me in a moment. Chris, you've already heard. Those were really special comments. And Chief of Staff Molly Ferris, who's answered all the questions I have. As I told people, I travel to a lot of places and get to see lots of bar associations. It's not surprising to tell you that not all bar associations are created equal. And some do a really good job, some try to do a really good job. You're really blessed with a great bar association that's really delivering value to members, but also is not afraid to stand up when the association needs leadership, when our profession needs leadership, when our community needs leadership. So you're blessed to be part of a terrific legal community, and it's great to be here. I know this is a special event. Chris told me we have a full bar and appetizers afterwards, so what could be better? Let me begin, I guess, with the obvious. This is not the year that I anticipated when I was selected as president of the American Bar Association. I told people I was hoping to channel my inner Sandra Bullock and win the Miss Congeniality Award. That opportunity has passed some time ago. This year has not been what I wanted, or it's been quite different. And I suspect 2025 has not been the year any of us envisioned when it began. Of course, it's not news that people are criticizing lawyers and judges, but the current attacks are pervasive, relentless, and destructive. In America, they are unprecedented. So no, this is not the year any of us expected, but it is the year we have. As lawyers, we are trained to spot issues and work to solve the problems. So in the next few minutes, I wanted to talk about our crucial role as lawyers, how the ABA is responding to challenges, and what we can and must do together. First, let's start with the special role lawyers play at this time. We're members of a profession which even before January 20th was facing profound change. I quote a friend of mine, Pat Gillette, who often says, change is like heaven. Everybody wants to go there, but nobody wants to go there now. And that's the profession we're inheriting, different service models, impact of technology, AI, hoteling. I was talking to managing partners this morning, remote work, and much more. And these changes present us with a special problem and challenge, which is relevance. Leaders of the profession, we must be relevant to a new generation of lawyers and to the world at large who may not see the world, lawyers' role, the profession, and bar associations as we have. That means we must change our methods about how we communicate, how people become engaged and informed, and how we deliver value. But of course, there's a much deeper challenge today that we're confronting as lawyers and members of the profession. Threats to the very existence of our justice system, threats to the very existence of our profession, to the bedrock principles that a country has followed for now nearly 250 years. I never imagined in the United States we would see attacks on the rule of law, attacks on judges, attacks on lawyers, attacks on the profession, the apparent disregard of due process, and all of this from our own government and from government officials, because that's the fact. The frequency and intensity show no sign of lessening. It is more than I can ever recall. You, no doubt, have read the stories in the news. They're, if not a daily thing, every other day. I suspect there are times when we are numb to it all, when it's hard to grasp because there's so much. Since the founding of the Republic, lawyers have always played key roles, and we are called upon today to do so again when there are threats to the rule of law itself. I want to say a few words about what we believe is a clear pattern to the attacks and threats, and perhaps some of these thoughts will help you as you face things in your legal community, in your firms, and your practice. There's a certain irony that I speak today about what many say are political issues. They are not political issues. And if they were, I'd be the wrong choice to speak because I've never been a member of either the Republican or Democratic Party. I haven't been a member of any party. I told a group my last contribution was to Dick Gebhardt. Many of you don't know who Dick Gebhardt is. He's alive and well, a wonderful guy. He was part of my firm in the 60s. I wasn't there. But before many people in this room were lawyers, probably before some were born. But I stand before you today to talk about rule of law issues that have guided our profession since its very inception almost 150 years ago, but our republic long before that. And I do so as ABA president and as a lawyer in St. Louis who practices law all his life for a living, representing clients in court. First, let me talk to you about the pattern relative to our courts, which I suspect you know, but the detail you may have forgotten. Officials are making blunt statements that suggest they're above the law. And the courts should not interfere with what the executive branch is doing. That was argued in the Ninth Circuit just 3 weeks ago. Other government officials are suggesting they will ignore courts' rulings. It happened in the last 3 weeks by a secretary in the cabinet in a congressional hearing. Again, our courts are grappling with the issue of whether court orders are being ignored in connection with the deportations taking place. That's almost every day in the news. Government officials openly question whether due process is needed in certain areas and whether the Constitution should be followed because it will take more time than they thought. The suspension of the writ of habeas corpus has been discussed and considered, according to news reports, and appointed and elected officials call for the impeachment of judges for rendering a decision they don't like. Those calls have included ones by the President of the United States. In a public hallway of Congress, you can go up and see this week, an elected leader posted a wanted sign outside his office depicting the names and photos of judges who he believes should be impeached because of their judicial rulings. Elected officials of the government have posted social media posts and made other remarks criticizing judges and others in highly derogatory terms. They should cause anyone to cringe. And if my kids had had cell phones when I was younger, they would have lost them for a week, as I suspect they would in your household. And yet our leaders believe such language and contact are appropriate when talking about judges. What happened over Memorial Day weekend illustrates this, along with what happened over July 3rd and 4th. The White House, over Memorial Day, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff wrote on X that, quote, the judicial coup must end, and referenced a cabal of unelected communist judges. The Deputy Chief of Staff for the U.S. Attorney General on the weekend, Memorial Day, said the Supreme Court must immediately intervene and rein in judges masquerading as diplomats. And on July 4th, the same individual referenced rogue district judges and said the Supreme Court must end the judicial coup, and posting a hashtag. The day before, the Attorney General referenced rogue district judges in a post. I suspect that if a lawyer in your office wrote these things in a brief or posted things, they would not have a job. And yet, that's what's happening. On Memorial Day weekend, the president posted on Truth Social in all caps that referenced USA-hating judges who suffer from an ideology that is sick and very dangerous to our country. And then said, quote, hopefully the United States Supreme Court and other good and passionate judges throughout the land will save us from the decisions of the monsters who want our country to go to hell. It's a quote. Just step back and consider what the President of the United States is posting, describing judges as monsters because of their decisions. And so we ask, where's the condemnation? As reported by reputable media outlets, some judges have received anonymous deliveries of pizzas to their homes and the homes of their adult children. In some cases, the senders are reported to be names that conjure dark images of past violence against judges and their families. The message is clear. We know where you live. We know where your adult children live. These are blatant attempts to intimidate judges. And the recent events in Minnesota make these threats all the more sinister and real. And we ask, where are the condemnations? Where are the investigations? The press conferences to find the perpetrators of these intimidations? These are shameful actions. We just have to call it what it is. It's shameful. We have not seen this before in our country in this pattern and frequency. The words of Chief Justice Roberts from his 2024 year-end report on the federal judiciary take on added importance. It was issued in either late December or January. And he said, within the past year, we have also seen the need for state and federal bar associations to come to the defense of a federal district judge whose decision in a high-profile case prompted an elected official to call for impeachment. I was talking about an incident in Washington last year. Then he wrote, attempts to intimidate judges for their rulings in cases are inappropriate and should be vigorously opposed. Those are Justice Roberts' words, not mine. It is a direct call to every lawyer and every bar association. It is part of the oath that every lawyer takes to maintain the respect due to courts of justice and judicial officers. See, it's our job to help our communities understand the separation of powers and three co-equal branches of government. And that's what the ABA is doing. But the attacks aren't limited to judges, as you know. Many of you watched 60 Minutes, which was a whole presentation about attacks on law firms and what law firms are doing in response. They've been attacked for the legal work they've done or the clients they've represented. The motive is very clear. It's stated in the executive order or on social media. Lawyers know this conduct is wrong. Every one of our state Supreme Courts, all 50, the red ones, the blue ones, the purple, whatever, every court has said that a lawyer's representation of a client does not constitute an endorsement of the client's political, economic, social, or moral views or activities. It's Rule 1.2 in virtually every state. These attacks are not only attacks on law firms and lawyers, but they're attacks on everyone's right to the legal representation of their choice. Many people, as 60 Minutes was, are focused on what law firms have done in response to the executive orders. I would submit to you that's the wrong focus. The focus and the question is, why is the executive branch and the lawyers within the executive branch taking such actions that are contrary to the code of ethics adopted by every state Supreme Court in the United States? These unfair attacks have galvanized and unified the profession in a way I have seldom seen, if ever. Governing boards of bar associations throughout the United States and world have spoken in defense of the rule of law and condemned these actions, voluntary and many mandatory bars. The words vary, but the message is clear, and their collective membership measures in the millions. I am proud that bar associations and schools and groups are not afraid to speak. I am proud that the Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association has spoken, and that several Ohio Metro bars have spoken. I am proud of the work that each of our bar associations does to make lawyers better and to serve their communities. It is a coalition of the willing. There is immense power in speaking up and speaking out and doing it together. But there is also risk. Because we had the courage to speak up and support the bedrock principles of our democracy, we've been attacked. The executive branch has defunded ABA programs that made the legal system accessible to all and promoted the justice system. We have done rule of law work where we train lawyers and judges in 60 countries. We've done it for, I think, 50 years. And it's chaired by retired U.S. Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer. That was defunded by this administration. We've done work in the disaster legal relief for 50 years. If you Google disaster legal assistance, FEMA's 1, ABA Young Lawyers is 2. That was defunded. Our work representing unaccompanied minors and others seeking asylum at our borders, we were asked to do it by the State Department. That's been defunded. Our work in the domestic and sexual violence space was defunded. Every one of these programs was authorized by Congress and approved by the administrations of both parties over many years. So there's risk to these things, risk to the stands we're talking about taking. And of course, you know that bar associations and the ABA are targets because of our support of diversity. One of the ABA's core principles is to eliminate bias in the courts and the profession and to enhance diversity. We are not retreating from that. Bias is real, and we have to confront it. As Chris mentioned, after the tragic events in Ferguson, our Supreme Court created a Commission on Racial and Ethnic Fairness. I've co-chaired it along with others since its inception. It's a red state. We finished an 11-year study of criminal courts and found bias in some places. We've studied where it comes from, and we're working to come up with some solutions. Because isn't that what we want? Don't we want a court system and a profession that's free of bias? I've yet to hear of any judge in any part of the country that does not want every litigant in their court to be treated the same and fairly. Well, so does the ABA, and that's why we have to study this. That's why we have to be not afraid to look at it and come up with solutions. And we're going to continue to have the courage to say so. We also hear the administration suggest you should choose between excellence or diversity. This is obviously a false choice. Excellence requires diversity. In fact, excellence thrives on diversity. We cannot let others control the narrative on this important issue. We cannot retreat from speaking. So in the face of all these attacks, what have we done? What has the ABA done? Well, we've tried to be measured. We've tried to be deliberate. We've tried to be thoughtful. We're lawyers. We've spoken out repeatedly through statements to our members, through social media, through regular media. We've spoken at podiums like this, and we are going to keep doing it. In short, at the ABA, we decided on a deliberate strategy. We reviewed our foundational principles. What do we stand for? And what line will we defend? We assembled a coalition. We went and talked to key audiences for us. We spoke to them. We listened. We did a lot of listening. We acted to protect our operations with cases we filed. And now we seek relief in the courts for what we believe are wrongful actions of the executive branch. We recently prevailed in one case about the work in the domestic and sexual violence space. Our case involving USAID has been to the Supreme Court and back. In June, just 3 or 4 weeks ago, we did something quite a bit different. The ABA filed suit on behalf of its members against the U.S. government, asking the court to declare unconstitutional the administration's ongoing unlawful policy of intimidation against lawyers and law firms, and to enjoin the administration from enforcing the policy. You may wonder why the ABA chose this moment to bring this suit. And the answer is simple. The profession is under attack in ways we've never seen before. The integrity of our justice system cannot be preserved through silence. You can read the allegations. It's a long lawsuit, 90 pages. I'm not going to cover them today. The lawsuit challenges what we call the government's law firm intimidation policy, because the message from the government is clear. Take on the wrong client or sue the government, and the lawyer and the law firm may suffer the consequences. We are asking the courts to affirm something which has never been in doubt in this country, that the government cannot penalize lawyers for representing unpopular clients or causes. This is not a professional courtesy. It's not a professional standard. It's a constitutional safeguard. It isn't a partisan issue. And it isn't the ordinary friction that you see between law and politics. It's something much more corrosive. Lawyers are being targeted for doing their jobs. We wish the lawsuit wasn't necessary. But every day we don't act is another day the erosion continues. The ABA didn't bring and didn't file the suit lightly, but we bring it with resolve. The rule of law does not defend itself. Lawyers do. And when those lawyers are under threat, defending them becomes more than our professional duty. It becomes a defense of the promise that justice in America is available to all, not just the powerful or the politically favored, but to everybody. There may never be a perfect time to do something difficult, but there's never a wrong time to do what's right. Sometimes history draws a line. A moment arrives when what you do next is more important than anything you've done before. This is that moment. Have there been consequences for our words and actions? Sure. Sure there have been. When we've spoken, a number of elected officials have responded by avoiding the substance of the issues. You know the playbook, denigrate the institution. I've gotten the letters from senators and others. They like to do two things. The first is name calling. It's always name calling. And the second, they complain about something the ABA did or did not do in the last 40 years. Before I was very active. Much of the narrative is false. For example, when we've spoken 15 times in the last 8 years about criticism of judges. If I spoke every time somebody criticized a judge unfairly, I'd be talking 24 hours a day. In the last 12 months alone, elected and appointed officials of both parties have claimed a judicial coup. Last fall, it was a Democrat who said there's been a judicial coup, and we spoke. This year, it's Republicans. But it doesn't matter who said it. It doesn't matter whether it's Democrats, doesn't matter whether it's Republicans, doesn't matter whether it's independents. It was and is wrong, and we've said so. But let me be very clear on this point. It would not matter if we had never spoken. because there's never a wrong time to stand up and do what's right. And those of you who are parents know this all too well. My wife and I raised 3 kids. There were times, almost every night, we'd go to bed and kind of postmortem the day. And sometimes I would be told, you should have spoken up. You should have said something. You didn't handle the situation right. But whatever we did one day didn't forfeit our right to speak the next day. And so instead, like every parent, we got up the next day, presented a new opportunity to do what was right and appropriate for our family. For our professional family, today is the next day. We must stand for what's right. No more threats against judges, no more threats against lawyers, no more threats against law firms, bar associations, schools of higher education, no more disregard for the rule of law and due process. I don't know what the future's going to hold. I probably don't know what's happened in the last hour or two. I was checking just as I walked up here, there was another decision of the Supreme Court. There will likely be more difficult days, more threats, more attacks. But there is one thing you can count on. The ABA will continue to stand and speak and act, not because we're against any administration, but because we believe in standing up for the bedrock principles that have served our country for 250 years. There are risks to doing something, I know. Despite that, we have to fight for what we believe in. It is not a fight we want, but it is landed on our doorstep, and we have to meet the challenge. We may suffer, we may be bruised. At the ABA, we already have been. But you will know who we are and what we stand for. There's a reason the American Bar Association exists. There's a reason the Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association exists, and many bars throughout the country. And one of those reasons is to lead the profession when the rule of law is under attack, and we must fight for the rule of law, fight for our judiciary, fight for our profession. Now is the time for our profession to speak with one voice. Crisis management is important. Lord knows we have lots of it, but crisis leadership is the most important thing. And that's what you're going to see from the ABA. I think there is power when we stand together. We need everybody to rally to the cause. We must enlarge the coalition of the willing, because today is the next day for the profession. But it's also the most important time for the profession. There is so much that divides us. I believe we have to focus on what unites us. The rule of law is more important than our differences, what we disagree with about how we're spending money or how our governance structure is and all those kinds of things. It's more important than our differences, your political party, your philosophy, where you live, and what you do. We can choose to remain silent and allow these acts to continue, or we can stand for the rule of law and the values we hold dear. We are asking lawyers everywhere to stand with us, to join us, support us with their voice, time, and resources. We welcome firms everywhere to be part of that. When I began this year, I was proud to hold the position of ABA president. But as the year progressed, I discovered there was something more important than being the president. The crisis caused us to re-examine our purpose. And I realized that purpose was more important than position. And that's why I'm here, to use my position as president to talk about our purpose. It's risky. It's hard. It's not easy to lead a legal organization or a firm today. I worry at night about what we should say, how we should say it, when we should say it. I worry about the impact of my words and the actions we take on the ABA, our staff, my firm, my family. But in the end, I decided that we have to wake up every day and do the right thing. I don't know how the story's going to end, but the ABA will be true to its purpose, because if we don't stand together, if we quit, if we don't see this through, well, the story may not end the way we want it to, because we gave up in the face of risk and adversity. These are hard choices for all of us, but I urge all of us to choose purpose over position. The bottom line is this: together we're stronger. The fight to preserve something precious is too important to stay silent, and we're not going to stay silent. We call upon the entire profession to stand up against intimidation. We need lawyers and everyone here to tell their neighbors, those they see at the grocery store, at Costco, at Sam's, or the ball game, or where they go attend their kids' concerts and where they worship. Tell them why the rule of law matters, why due process matters. We have resources that can assist lawyers. We acknowledge there are risks to standing up and addressing these important issues. But if the ABA and the Cleveland Metropolitan Bar Association and others and all of us do not speak, who is going to speak for our bar? Who's going to speak for our judges? Who's going to speak for our judicial system? And if we don't speak now, when will we speak? This is our moment to do what's right in the face of difficult circumstances and risk. I believe this can be our finest hour as a profession. It is our opportunity and privilege to tell people why the legal profession matters, why lawyers matter, why the rule of law matters, and the role we play. You are really indispensable. I want to hear from you, your concerns, suggestions. We're going to have some questions ahead. Ask all the questions you can. I may not have every answer, but we will try to address those. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Well, Bill, thank you for being here in Cleveland. We appreciate it very much. I'd like to ask you about the EOs. First of all, the administration issued a number of EOs targeting and punishing law firms because of the clients they represented, because they represented clients the administration doesn't like. And I think most commentators would say, and probably even the administration, these were thinly veiled attempts to deter law firms from challenging the administration in courts.
Very thinly veiled.
Yeah, very thinly veiled, bridal veiled. And I guess my question for you is, do you think they've worked? Have these EOs had the desired effect?
Yeah, I think they have. That's why we filed the lawsuit. I think there's a real fear in the legal profession. Among the AmLaw 200, a number of firms have changed their diversity policies. They pulled them off the website. Their pro bono work, they pulled off the website. There clearly are many law firms that are saying, I'm not going to get involved in pro bono work against a government policy. I'm not going to be there. And that's part of the point of the lawsuit. There's real fear and intimidation. It's not just, it doesn't end with four firms filing suit, which they've all won so far, although I guess they're going to now go up on appeal, and the others who have resolved it. It's a real prevalent thing, I think, in at least clearly in the AmLaw 200, but beyond that, people, the pro bono organizations are finding increasingly difficult time trying to find lawyers who will do their work. So that's why it's ongoing. It didn't end where we're at. Because part of the issue is, I know the money, everybody focused on the money, but it's the money is one thing, the fear and intimidation, that's the thing. It's fundamentally changing. We have never lived in a country where law firms and lawyers are punished for who they represent, the positions they espouse. We can't do that. We can't do that. We have to say, this is a line we're going to stand on and fight.
So you talked a little bit about the costs of speaking out, and you talked a little bit about the times in the past that the ABA has spoken out under different administrations. We found when we spoke out on rule of law issues that the response from our membership was overwhelmingly positive. And there were a few who played the both sides argument. I'm sure that's something that you've heard in the past and continued to deal with, yes?
Yeah, people have lots of different views and opinions. I mean, I laugh with sometimes I have a board that's 45, and I have some that will say, hey, your tone's too tough, and the others who will say, why don't you chain yourself to the White House fence? So it's, this is why it's so important what you're going to defend. There are lots of issues in the world, but we spent a great deal of time defending what we view as the four most important things: the rule of law, judges, being attacked, law firms being attacked for they represent, and diversity. And so that's the message. That's what we're going to stay on. There are other things we can talk about, but I think these are almost indefensible. Somebody told me at some meeting, or not directly, but I heard they said, I disagree with everything you had to say. And I wanted to shake the person. I said, really? I mean, you think judges should be impeached for issuing one bad decision? You think law firms should be punished for who they represent? I mean, this is, I mean, I know it's hard, and we may have members that say this is political, we don't want to speak about it. But I think this is an existential issue for the bar and the profession. This is what we must fight. But we've got to count the cost too. There may be costs. I mean, believe me, I've gotten emails that are not great. Yeah. And gotten reported to the authorities. You know, it's you can imagine all kind of parade of horribles at night. But I've talked to judges who get in the pieces and are worried. They're proud the bar's standing up for them. They want that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of folks here who are here because they care about rule of law issues. The common refrain that I have heard over the months is that people want to help. They want to do something, but they're feeling overwhelmed or not sure where to start. What do you say to folks, whether they're lawyers or non-lawyers, who want to do something to preserve our institutions and these core hallmarks of our democracy, but aren't sure what to do?
Well, it's hard. It's hard to know. Let me say, first of all, there's lots of great organizations, Cleveland Metropolitan Bar, ABA, and others who are fighting for the rule of law. You should join. You should give them money. Support organizations that are doing what you believe in. Number two, it's an odd thing, but I mean, I'm from Missouri. It's an advantage. I think I love my state. It has warts, but I love my state. It's a red state. A lot of people supported the administration. It's important that we talk to these people and listen to people. Talk to people. These are your friends. I found a lot of people that support what the administration is doing, but they don't like the way it's being done. That's an avenue for us to talk about. That's an avenue for us to address. We need to listen to people. And sometimes the most important thing that happens in a day won't be you and I talking. It's what's happening in the back row or when you go home and talk to one of your neighbors. Not in a tirade, but talking about something personal of why the rule of law matters, why due process matters, why they should care. Because so often everybody says, well, Bill, I know you care, and I love you, Bill, but you know, you're the president of the ABA, or somebody says you're a judge. That's you guys. That's you guys. But for us, it doesn't matter. Or, you know, you're protecting your own. We have to deal with the reality of that. We have to cut through all the things that are coming at people. Put aside just the normal tragedies, the terrible things in Texas that's happening, but also the Iran, Gaza, tariffs. I mean, all these things. It's so much. People don't understand the pattern. You as lawyers, you understand the pattern. And when you begin to set it out there, you see it for what it is. And so I would urge, I think, join organizations, give money, get involved, and then talk to people. I mean, part of the issue is we have to come up with a better way systemically of dealing with civics than we've done. What we've done hasn't worked. We're going to have to do a better job. And there's lots of focus in the National Center for State Courts, at the ABA and others to do that. And number two, we have to come up with a message that resonates with our neighbors and friends. We have to communicate. I mean, the law is a relationship business. We have to step out of being lawyers and listen to people and deal with where they're at and talk about this. And I wish I had a great formula. We've got videos and stuff we could show that talk about what the rule of law is. But this is our biggest challenge. You guys can be part of this answer. Whatever, we don't have the final answer that's going to work today. We've got lots of things we're doing, but I don't know what's ultimately going to turn the tide. But meetings like this not only encourage us, but also hearing from you really matters.
One of the things the administration has done recently is submitted a budget that zeroes out funding for Legal Services Corporation, which of course funds legal aid all over the country. And when we talk about why the rule of law matters, that's a pretty stark example. What's your view on what's to come with legal aid funding and what can and is the ABA doing about it?
Well, they put a closeout budget of $21 million. That's in the plan or in the bill, but of course that's not the budget. They're going to work on the budget, and so there's still lobbying work to do. We spent 25 or 30 years. Legal Services has led the charge to develop relationships, to encourage funding in Congress. The ABA is, does ABA Day, is all about that funding. The battle isn't over here, okay? So the outline is one thing. We have to get and lobby our Congress folks and talk about having funding. I know Legal Services is meeting this week. They're going to be guiding the strategy. What are we asking for? What are we looking for? What are we going to do? But the loss of legal services affects us all. If we just want a court system and a justice system that favors the people that have money, that are powerful, or that are politically connected, we've fundamentally changed the system. We fundamentally changed it. And I can't go to sleep at night thinking that's what's going to happen. People that need representation, we owe it to them. We owe them more than the $400 or $600 million Congress is giving. I mean, I always get frustrated half the time, just throw $1 billion at it. The Congress throws around billions like they're stinking quarters. I mean, give us $1 billion for legal services. What difference can it make in our communities? Because we're not looking in legal services for just congressional handouts. You guys are giving money to legal services. We're already supporting it. Companies, communities are doing this. It's just that extra piece that makes a difference, because sometimes there's things only the federal government can help us do, and this is one of those times. But that battle is still undergoing. It's another crisis that's ahead, but it's a way rule of law, and what's being done matters here.
So that leads to the next question. Cutting the funding for legal aid is a little bit of a double whammy to the rule of law, right? Because on one hand, you're denying folks who are voiceless, are disenfranchised, access to the courts. At the same time, that in turn creates some disillusionment and cynicism about the public confidence in the courts, which is very much at risk. So what do you say to non-lawyers, but also in particular to young lawyers and to law students who might be looking at everything and feeling hopeless or disillusioned about the state of our courts and our justice system and government?
Well, I talked earlier today and talked about one of my favorite lawyer movies, which is Apollo 13. There's no lawyer in Apollo 13. Just spoiler alert. But there's 1,000 things that goes wrong. I mean, I identify with when they're in a conference room and everybody is yelling and talking about they're going to run out of oxygen. They're going to bounce off the atmosphere. The engines can't restart. We don't think the heat shield's going to be damaged. All these parade of horribles, and they're all talking about all the things that are going to go wrong. As we are here, there's lots of things that can go wrong. Those are real fears. And yet Ed Harris, who comes in as the mission control, comes in and tells everybody, calm down, wake everybody up, and let's start working the problem. And so that's where I think we have as a bar, as a profession, we have to wake everybody up. That's part of the purpose of here, waking everybody up. Not that you're asleep, I don't mean that, but waking people up, waking people who are not lawyers up to the issues, and then starting to work the problem. I mean, I do believe in hope. Okay, I'm not gonna throw up my hands and give up. Those people who throw up their hands and give up, they've lost. Okay, we've quit. We can't quit. There are bad things happening. I get it, but we have to say why this matters and get out here and fight the fight. And I think what we have is too important, and that's why this crisis is not what I wanted, but it causes us to look at what we've taken for granted over the last couple of decades, okay? What we've taken for granted, now we know what it could mean if we lose this. And so we have to get to work and be positive, be hopeful. We need law students going to law school. We need new ideas. The best idea for us may not come from anybody in this room, but one of your kids or friends who's going on to law school who brings that new idea to the table. And that's what we gotta have. I mean, that's why I always at the end talk about this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for us to talk about what really matters in our profession. And because we continue to have a world where, these diatribes on social media take place and where it's a government that appears to be more vengeance oriented. I prefer one that's more merciful, compassionate, that gives people grace, okay? And that's where we have to be, and we have to stand for that. If the world isn't going to be that way, okay, that's fine. But I think I'm going to make that personal decision to be that way, and I think you guys are making that decision. And so that's where we have to be.
I had one more question for you, Bill. but I think you've answered it, which was I was going to ask how you felt about the future, whether you're optimistic or pessimistic about the future. I think I heard you say a couple times that you have to have hope. So if it's okay, I'd like to ask you a different final question. You open your remarks by saying this isn't the year you expected. I'm sure not. On a personal level, how do you feel about becoming a bit of a lightning rod? I imagine that's not something that you dreamed of when you were a little kid growing up in Missouri, that you would become a lightning rod for attacks from one party, from the president of the United States.
Yeah, you get, my kids go on X and look at some of the things being said about me, and you're a Marxist, you're a socialist, you're this or that, you're just a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat, liberal, whatever. It's commie. I mean, my gosh, it's even commie they use. I mean, it's just like, what? My kids say, Dad, don't they know you're conservative? I mean, it's like, what? There are days it's discouraging. I just can't tell you. I mean, yes, it's discouraging, but it's also times when you hear stories people say coming to this meeting, it's encouraging. I mean, let me go a boat analogy on you. Anybody ever read the book Boys in the Boat? Seen the movie? Great story. Another great law story. But in the movie, I mean, it's the University of Washington 8-man rowing crew, and they come from different backgrounds and different places, and they're trying to get together to they have to sublimate some of the things they're doing to work together as one unit. And so, as those of you who haven't read it or seen the movie, of course, the spoiler alert, they go on and win the gold medal. So that's from the movie for you. But at the end, the star of the movie is is walking with his grandson, and his grandson. It's a tough story to tell, but the grandson says something about, Grandpa, do you think I could ever be one of the 8 people rowing? And the grandfather says, it's a good thing I don't talk for a living. We were never 8, we were always 1.
Yeah.
Okay? That's what matters here. We're all in the boat together, okay? It gives me great encouragement and hope to be here. I think we're all in this together. I think we can put aside everything that divides us, boys in the boat together, girls and boys in this case, but being together to fight for what is really the most important thing in our profession. So,
well, Bill, on behalf of the entire Cleveland legal community and the entire legal community of the country, I just want to say that the courage you've shown, the leadership you've shown is nothing short of heroic. I know it's not what you asked for, but it's what the moment required. And you've really, with your leadership and staff at ABA, you've really lived up to the highest aspirational ideals of our profession and what a bar association is supposed to do. So we are all deeply appreciative, and I'd love to open it up to questions.
Sure. Thank you.
We'll have folks with microphones coming down the aisles.
I'll not try to talk about any more movie analogies.
Just try and keep your speeches to questions instead of speeches, and try and keep them respectful of all involved.
Mr. Bay, thank you so much for coming and for leading the fight for the rule of law. My name is Subodh Chandra. I'm a civil rights lawyer. Among other things, recently I've obtained a preliminary injunction along with a legal team against DOJ for what it did to federal government employees' personal identifiable information. What I want to ask you about is, here's a foundational sentence or two. It is an ethical and professional obligation on our part in our criticisms of judges in the judiciary not to attack them, certainly in the way that the ABA is challenging right now. On the other hand, in my view, over the course of my career, there's been an erosion of behavior by the judiciary, particularly the Supreme Court, members of the Supreme Court, that would give us confidence in the judiciary. So, for example, 2 justices going off on trips paid by billionaires, that sort of thing. What I'd like to know from you is what has been the ABA's positions on those issues? How is it speaking out on those? Because between that, the shadow docket we see at the Supreme Court, a lack of fidelity to, it seems like, the rule of law, plain text, and just traditional legal principles. Certainly as a lawyer, I'm beginning to have diminished confidence in some aspects of the judiciary, and I'm a lawyer paying attention. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. And one other quick unrelated follow-up questions. Please educate everybody on what's happened to the ABA's rule of law democratization programs abroad and what kind of impact that's having as well. Thank you.
Yeah, let me take the easy part. I don't know whether they're both hard parts, but the rule of law, that's the initiative chaired by Justice Stephen Breyer. That's been terminated. We've had to lay off a number of employees. Not a happy time. Put aside the policy issues. It's, you're affecting people's lives, and that's hard, really hard. And so those programs, we're still running a bit of those programs, but most of them have been cut back and not likely to come back. Not likely to come back. Those have been things that what happens is the State Department says we want to train judges and lawyers in democratic systems in various countries. And so we were asked to do that. And so we did it, and we get paid to do that. And so that's all ended. I mean, that's basically not completely done, but is kind of like runoff mode, and I'm being too strong, but it's a shadow of what's there. In the ethics thing, it's interesting. I mean, the National Center for State Courts has done a lot of focus groups with regular folks about what do you think about ethics and judges, and of course, they think there are no ethical codes that bind any judges in the country. Okay, when the fact is that every state and federal judge, except for 9, is bound by an ethical code that is run by people that are not on the court, by others that are outside their system. And the 9 also have an ethical code, but they administer it, not somebody else. So the ABA has been, I think, very firm about an ethical code, and it has to be stronger. I mean, we've said have policy on that. So I hope that's responsive to what's there. But part of that is that just shows how events here can affect everybody's perception. We're going to have to be better stewards and better communicators to talk about that every judge in the country, every judge is subject to an ethical code. And it's administered by a third party as to all except the 9. The 9 have their own ethical code there. And so I know we're frustrated about those things. I think that's separate from a rule of law issue attacking judges for their decisions. Other questions?
I can't promise that the ABA president's going to be here for another generation, so you may not get another chance. We have one up front.
Cardinals did good last week in Cleveland. I know I hate to say that, but it is my team. I love my team, okay? They did bad after that.
Hi, Gabe.
Hi, Gabrielle Kelly, former Vice President of Inclusion and Diversity for our CMBA. And my question for you is, over the past 5 or so years, a number of bar associations, including the ABA, has really taken up diversity and inclusion through programming and through intentional efforts. And with what's happening at the federal level, how do you see that going forward in future generations of lawyers when our modest gains have been really hard fought?
Yeah, I think we're going to see, I mean, obviously the administration has a different view of diversity than that I'm not convinced is supported by the Supreme Court. That has yet to be litigated. We'll see. That's going to be litigated. Okay? It's going to come up in some case soon. But I think we have to pick up the mantle, and I think we have to do what we tried to do in Missouri. We have to be data-driven, okay? I don't want to debate with people. We looked at 11 years of data on criminal courts, and they showed bias, and showed bias in certain areas. It showed certain areas, some by judges, some by prosecutors. And when we have to deal with the situations, I mean, one of the things we're looking at is blind charging. I mean, does it make a difference if prosecutors don't know the race and ethnicity of people? Oh, yeah, it does. Okay, it does. And so, is that something we should explore? Perhaps, okay? But that's where I think we have to be data-driven and look back at what you stand for. What does your university stand for? What does your bar stand for? What does your firm stand for? And if diversity was a foundational principle yesterday, it did not become one tomorrow. And so we got to keep on doing that. Am I hung up about the names? Probably not as much as others are about the names. It's what we do that matters. Okay, it's what we do that matters. And but on the legal side, yes, I think there's still going to be litigation. I anticipate the part of the day 2 order, executive orders that apply to bar associations, asked the Attorney General to find 9 bar associations and 9 medical associations that were the most woke. Okay, we're still waiting for that report, and there's, we have letters from the Attorney General and others, complaining about certain programs. We're being sued about our Legal Opportunity Scholarship Fund. We're in the middle of that, and we're going to defend that. I mean, we're out defending the case. I've probably done more looking at law firms and lawyers. I keep reminding myself I'm a client here. But I think on diversity grounds, we have to continue to be faithful to talk about what we stand for, and then be programmatic about, continue to lead the way. That's what we're going to try to do at the ABA. I mean, we're just doing it. We've done a full audit of our programs. And we're going to say this is what we're doing, and we'll defend the cases, and we'll continue to defend the cases. We're going to continue to speak out about the principle, eliminating bias in our courts and our profession, and enhancing diversity. That's what we're going to do.
I think we have time for one or two more. I see one in the back, and we've got a couple up front. Yes.
Hi, Attorney Erin Adams-Armstrong. I have a question that you covered a little bit. I'm a family law lawyer who's horrified about what's going on, but I feel, given my sect within our profession, very powerless with some of these rule of law issues. In addition to things like taking some pro bono cases from legal aid, hi, Ms. Cotter, and maintaining my membership at CMBA, what can I do really seriously? I donate to the CMBA Foundation, I donate to other causes. What can I do to help us in our profession, not being, unlike Sabot, a civil rights lawyer? How can I help? Really boots on the ground, nitty gritty. Thank you.
Well, obviously there's in some,
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I know, it's hard to see back there. The lights are brighter than you think here. Yes, I see you wave now. I think a willingness to take on some cases, okay? I think, the legal, I mean, I'm thrilled with what you're talking about, being a member of CMBA, giving money, giving them $35, right? I'm gonna put in a pledge for that, Chris. But I think also speaking up and making your voice heard, okay? There's lots of people that think, oh, I don't wanna get involved in this, I don't like it, but it'll work itself out. Things always have a way of working out. I don't think things always do work out. And so you speaking up in communities like this with other lawyers, hey, this really matters. I think what's being done is wrong. And speaking up, not yelling, not screaming, it's in a measured way. It's in a measured way. This is why it matters. I mean, I have people come in my office who are upset about, who love the administration. And I said, really, what do you think about the monster comment? What do you think about these other comments? They don't like that. Sometimes we have to confront in a loving way people, exactly what's been said and done. And that has an impact, okay? Number two, I think doing some cases, I think they're pro bono cases. The legal services, Lord knows, is going to need the help. They needed help yesterday. They're going to need the help tomorrow because we're not going to get all the funding restored, okay? I hope we do, but it's going to be tough. But I think there are lots of people who are in the boat, but you've got to be there with them. You've got to speak up. Okay, we've got to speak up. More people speak up. When the ABA speaks, that people say, okay, this is okay. I mean, I found that we're relevant in a way we haven't been relevant, okay? And that's really important because people say, because you spoke. And that's not just because of the ABA, it's when you speak, it makes a difference, okay? When your neighbor speaks, suddenly we're not just talking about Truth Social or what they're saying on X or Twitter or whatever, it's my neighbor, okay? My neighbor says this is really important and why. I am just a believer in small things make a huge difference, and enough small things done by people matters. And I love the fact you're in the back row because I always believe people in the back row sometimes have the ideas that we got to listen to the most. So thank you.
Thank you so much for being here in Cleveland and speaking to us on such an important topic. Not only the legal profession, but also nonprofits have very much come under attack. Within the last 2 weeks, I have sat in 2 different board meetings where the question and the discussion was the cleansing of its language and the 7 words, the whatever you can't speak about. It's a similar type of problem. My question is, has the ABA been addressed by the administration to cleanse its word usage? And is this a way that you believe, I'd like to hear your comment, that we can stand up, that organizations can stand up and say, we're going to continue to use these words?
Right. That's what we've done. We engaged general counsel, we engaged outside counsel to look at everything we did. You know, what's appropriate. We did what good clients do. They call their lawyers and got advice and counsel. And then as a board, we decided this is the line we're going to defend. A couple of things, no, that wasn't quite right. That should be corrected. We're not there on this, but this is the line we're going to draw. I mean, we have 30 NGOs, supposedly, according to the press. I've already got a letter to hold, to preserve documents because they're under attack. Over 200 NGOs, including some bar associations. We got letters, from a Homeland Security Committee in Congress about, are you doing anything to help illegal aliens, blah, blah, blah. And so there's, the net's being cast. And so it's not just the bar associations. We're going to have to change. We've always believed at the ABA, hey, we're the big guy on the block. What we say goes. We're going to have to find out as a profession. We're going to have to partner with people. We're going to have to partner with NGOs, with colleges and universities. There's lots of people in our world that are facing these problems. And we have more in common with them in terms of dealing with these problems, and we're going to have to change our mindset and how we're doing. This is what I love today with going over to the City Club. I mean, Cleveland Metropolitan Bar was a partner there. That's what our bar associations need to do. We need to get out of the cocoon we're in our profession and partner with people out in the real world. And that's just really important. And I think the NGO piece is, I think what we have to say is, no, we're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to, we'll correct things. If there's something wrong, Lord knows, correct it, for God's sakes. If your lawyer says it's not in accordance with law, then fix it. But we don't, this is, the administration's view on this is their view, okay? It's not been tested in court yet. We're just not going to retreat on this. We're not going to retreat in the language. We're not giving up on our legal scholarship opportunity fund. I can't guarantee you we're going to win every case, but we're going to be slugging it out. That's what we're going to be doing.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your comments and for coming down to speak with us. Patrick Espinoza on the board of directors from the CMBA. You've been talking about how the federal government has attacked lawyers, judges, firms in the MLaw 200, firms that do have quite a big bankroll and can protect themselves from the federal government. But what are your thoughts and maybe comments on smaller firms, boutique firms, single practitioners become attacked? I have a firm, we're a boutique firm. 98% of our clients speak Spanish. We're Hispanic branded. I have a contingency plan in my head of what happens if I get a complaint from the USAs. I know there's a lot of other practitioners out there that may not have the bankroll of these big law firms. What would your comments be on what we can do if that happens, and do you see that happening in the future?
Well, sure. You're exactly right. Not everybody can be the Perkins Coie or Sussman Godfrey and do those things. They have the dollars. God love them. Okay. And they have the ability to do these things and fight. That's why we filed suit 2 weeks ago. That's why we filed suit, because there's many of our, beyond the MLaw 200 that are, 40 lawyer firms, 10 lawyer firms, solos, other pieces, they figure they may be at risk, so they should do something. We've got to stand up for them. That's our job as an association. That's why associations have special ability to have standing. And so that's exactly what we are doing, because you don't have the wherewithal to fight, okay? Nobody's going to bankroll your fight. We're going to bankroll that fight. We are going to take that fight. Sussman Godfrey's going to take that fight.
Bill, again, thank you for coming to Cleveland, and thank you for speaking out in defense of our institutions and for being the voice for our entire profession. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.